Hello, I'm Eamon.
I'm Steve.
I'm Conrad.
I'm Stephen.
And we are
Mega City Film Club.
And the film club has expanded again. We're back in London. We did promise that we had some other suggestions for films to cover, and I'm here, obviously with Conrad Lydon from Space Spinner 2000, but I'm also with Steve Green and a new addition to the book club and film club, Stephen Stellacchini. Welcome
Hello.
to the club.
Thanks for having me.
So we're in a hidden location, secret location in London, and we're here to talk about two fan films that, of course, you're directly responsible for, the pair of you.
We're very sorry about that.
I'm going to get us right to it because we've got a fair bit to cover. We're going to start with the first film you did together, Judge Minty, not-for-profit fan film from 2013. I remember the not-for-profit bit.
Very much not for that.
Got to keep emphasising that. Starring Edmund, is it Dean? You pronounce it?
Dane.
Edmund Dane, Greg Staples, bunch of 2000 AD fans. Written by yourself, Stephen.
Initially written by myself.
Oh, right.
And then rewritten by Michael Carroll.
Yeah, help from Michael Carroll. So we got,
Lots of help.
And of course, I'll just mention quickly, Minty, based on the character John Wagner and Mike McMahon, Prog 147.
Yeah.
So the obvious question is, apart from Prog 147, what gave you the idea to do it?
I think the main thing was I'd already started making a film. Just a cheap thing. Steve's going to finish it off. That's how old it is.
Right.
So I think at the moment. And I just got talking with Dan Carey George about his props, and we was just saying, "Oh yes, I think we've got enough things here to make a little film." And it was originally going to be something a lot less sort of grand. It was just going to be all in the cursed earth, very few people, minimal sort of storyline. And then, as we were talking about it, Dan met Steve Green at was it a trade show of some kind?
No, it was like a place called Monster Mash, I think. Might have been 2007, 2008.
Right.
Basically a lot of prosthetics and animatronics type sort of people showing stuff off. So Dan had a stand there where he had like a judge helmet and aliens pulse rifle, and I think he had a lawgiver there. So he was showing like the props off there.
Was he Planet Replicas at that point?
No, this was. He had a company called Custom Creations, and there was another one called Gaslight Garage. But I think that wasn't particularly commercial. I think he might have done stuff for advertising agencies, but he wasn't selling merchandise or props to the general public. So no, the Planet Replicas stuff came about a year or two after Minty, or sort of like, or kind of after kind of like while we were sort of like shooting. Because we had like a couple of people offer to sort of like come in costumes, like John Burdis and sort of Rob Stewart, which helped enormously for the long walk sequence. Where we needed like multiple costumes, and we only had two.
Yeah. Just.
And Edmund was wearing one of them.
Right. Okay. So Minty, Judge Minty, as I said, he's in the prog. It's just one issue, I think, Conrad, isn't it? Yeah, and the story in the prog sort of is what the first few minutes of the film.
Yeah, first quarter of the film. I want to say.
Yeah, that Minty is injured and not probably up to
gets soft, gets hurt, and forced to take the long walk. It introduces the concept of the long walk to Dredd as well.
Right.
He does appear again in a written story in one of the annuals.
I think that was Jack Adrian sort of. Chris Lauder sort of scripted one in one of the. It's a text story. Sorry, Conrad.
Yeah,
it does have some lovely
Dave Gibbons
artwork.
Mm-hmm.
And is that anywhere near what you guys did with the Cursed Earth stuff?
No, it would sort of be set well after
right.
what we.
So he'd basically settled down and become like the sheriff of a town. With a gang sort of coming in and then not knowing that he's an ex-judge and that sort of thing. So we were kind of doing the in-between bits.
So you've got the idea to you're working on a film. Dan Carey George has got two costumes.
No, he's got a helmet.
He's
got some bits of a costume.
Right. And you meet Steve.
Yeah.
So Steve, what was your role in Minty?
Well, I guess my role initially was just going to be CGI, VFX, that sort of thing. I'd done an entirely CGI Mega City one I'm saying it's probably about 20 years ago now.
Right.
Just a kind of little push in with like lots of traffic and city blocks and whatever. And I think I might have posted it on the forum, and I think Steve might have sort of seen it and gone, oh, right, okay, would you be interested in that? So
Right.
I said, oh, yeah, sure. But then I thought, if I'm going to be doing the CGI on it, I'd probably want to film it,
Right.
just so I don't end up with sort of like footage that's really, really hard to work with. So it's pure laziness on my part, which kind of backfired.
Oh, right. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it was at that stage where cameras were getting a lot better,
Right.
like all the consumer cameras. So high definition cameras were sort of coming along, and there was a switch from tape to flash cards, and which just made things a lot easier, and you could get something a lot more high budget looking. Even if it was done on a shoestring, it looked a lot better than something that would have been shot 5 years before on standard DV cams, and
Right.
so it was. I think it was that kind of everything sort of came together at the same time, and so I ended up basically shooting it and doing pretty much all the effects on it.
And Edmund he's the professional actor in it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. How did you get him?
Well, we sort of looked on all the sort of websites you could go on to find actors,
Right.
and we sort of spotted Edmund, and he was the only one we approached out of maybe 10 that we sort of saw, and I sort of created a document to sort of say, this is what we're doing, this is all about Judge Binty, and we sent him a script, and I think in the end of the day he just basically said, I wanted to stab somebody in the groin and ride a Lawmaster.
Right.
Where are your people? We mentioned Harry as well, because we had Harry sort of like there's a promo picture, I think it was done up at Hi-X. Yeah. So he was basically kind of like Judge Minty before Judge Minty,
Right.
before we cast Edmund. So while we were kind of pitching it or doing promo for it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, of course, you got Judge Dredd in this movie,
Yes.
played by Greg Staples.
Yes.
How did you get Greg to do it?
Do you think we just asked?
Yeah, I don't know. Had we settled on Magna and he was local? I don't know.
I think it was something along those lines. It was, I don't know. Did we know him in any other way before then?
No, because I mean we'd done a few sort of promo sort of pieces at Bix before we started shooting. So
Yeah.
that was kind of like that was in Birmingham, the Millennium Centre, I think it's called, the think tank, and that was like the first unveiling of the costumes.
Right.
Even though they weren't quite, Dan had thinking about with the belt buckle and a couple of other bits. So I don't think we hadn't cast anybody at that point. But maybe people were going, oh, these costumes look pretty good.
Yeah,
and maybe that kind of encouraged.
I think that was the reason we went for Judge Minty in the first place, because we didn't want to be scrutinised on Judge Dredd casting. 'Cause,
Right.
It's always going to get
Controversial,
Yes. So we thought we'll avoid that, but it became inevitable that we're going to have to put Judge Dredd in there.
Yeah, I mean, there was a kind of like a sort of practical point of if Rebellion or somebody said like, oh, we don't want it to be Dredd, Dredd's barely in it, or he could be out of focus, or he could be just this kind of, like image that Minty squints and sees, and
Right.
so yeah, we didn't want Dredd to be sort of like front and centre.
No. Okay. But you've got like the young, tall, lithe, muscular Dredd.
Yeah.
For this one, whereas obviously Minty's at the other end of his career.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So you've got, how many uniforms did you end up with in the end? Just the two?
Just the two.
Yeah.
I'm astonished at the long walk, the start of the long walk sequence then. That's all.
Well, we shot it twice.
Right.
Because the first time we shot it with the two, we had just basically a bunch of fans come as extras, and we had these jackets, so it was one of the hottest days of the year, just gradually getting more and more sweaty. We're going, oh, we can't ask people to put this on, but they went, oh no, give it here, I'll put it on.
You could hear it squelching.
And while we talk about costumes, Edmund had problems with the boots, I gather.
Well, yeah, because basically because they were motocross boots,
Right.
so very little walking in them. In the end, I think we chopped his up and just put like braces on top of the walking boots.
Yeah.
I think that was before we did any Cursed Earth stuff.
Yeah.
So I think because in order, I think the first shoot we did was at Magna Science Park, Rotherham. So that was basically the shootout, the mega
Right.
city sort of stuff. It was also used for some Cursed Earth stuff in the interior. And And I think Edmund sort of said, "Oh yeah." I mean, he wasn't doing much in there. He basically just
Yeah.
had to, to
Yeah.
walk. But obviously, he sort of spotted, I'm not going to be able to trace up and down a Welsh quarry, with these, which is a fair point.
Although, in sort of like Judge Dredd law,
Yeah.
Conrad is going to remind us.
The tight boots.
I mean, that's how you keep on. Well, listen, but Judge Minchie doesn't have tight boots.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why he got soft.
This is what happens when you don't have tight boots. But so I mean that was the main thing that was changed. Everything else sort of stayed pretty much as is.
Yeah.
And I mean Dan has a really good eye for sort of scale, because obviously we've got pads, but they're not as big as they get in the comics. The shoulder
But
pads.
you can't have the pads vary wildly
Yeah.
from artist to artist, and I think some of those crazier pads can't make the transition to reality.
No,
because it's sort
no.
of like
I mean,
you can't like look sideways.
It's
Yeah.
nice that since then it's been used as a reference point and people draw that specific version of it.
Yeah. We sort of, I do my little. I see where that's come from. Obviously, there are some official ones where, like, Greg sort of like asked to do a photo shoot, like the Dark
Yeah.
Justice
Yeah.
stuff, but it's quite cool sort of seeing it kind of spread out into like the covers or the strip or.
Yeah, because as you say, getting slightly off topic, Greg Staples famously wants to do Dark Justice with John Wagner, and you'd organised the photo shoot.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like reference photo shoots. So that was with him and Lauren as Anderson, and it's basically it was just like reference because Greg obviously kind of is great with doing lighting and things like that. So it was very flat, sort of boring. It was in a room in this mysterious location where it's
Like this.
Yeah, like this, and Greg then sort of takes that and go, I'm going to really sort of like light it like it's a movie.
Right. Okay. So obviously it's a fan film, and as well as those notable names in the cast, you've got fans. You've got recognisable
Yeah.
fans from Southern Contingent and other conventions. How did you recruit people, and how did you wrangle them to all these locations?
We just asked. and they turned up. I remember when we were filming in Norwich, I think it was like the first day of filming, I realised that I've massively underscheduled this and everything's going to take twice as much time as I've allowed. And I was, just dropped Edmund off at the hotel and going back to the bunkhouse where we were staying, I'm thinking...
Yeah, Edmund had a hotel.
Yeah.
We were kind of,
Oh, I see,
we
yes.
were kind of all like
Yeah. And I was
bunking in
think-
together.
And I was thinking, if I just drove home now, what's the worst that could happen to me if we really wanted to get away from it? But the next day, all the fans turned up, and I'm sure one of them must have had like a General Lee sort of horn, because they came tearing into this compound, and just brought the entire production to life.
It's kind of like bringing energy. If you're flagging,
Yeah.
the fans are sort of
Oh, really?
Like,
Okay.
there were mini conventions in the end.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
the
but-
sort of Cursed Earth costumes, the sort of mutant gang costumes, they just turn up in stuff? Or?
No.
No, that was Steve.
I mean, Dan tended to do all the hero stuff, all the stuff that was going to be front and centre. But any of the garbage costumes or background stuff, I got stuck with.
Right.
So every time we were working on the script and Steve sort of said, I think probably we need another character here, I would go, I'm not sure we do actually. That's another costume I've got to make, sort of thing, and throw away later.
So there was a lot of those you were making then?
Yeah, just, I really, for a while, my eBay algorithm was quite questionable. Rubber masks and all sorts of weird stuff.
Weird jackets.
Yeah.
I appreciate all that. You got a bunch of themed goons in there. Like, this is the surgeon one. Like this guy, he's got the top hat.
I think that was it. It was from the Cursed Earth episodes. You just you picked a guy out. We need a guy with a top hat. And we made a thing.
Clown. There's a Ronald McDonald in there.
Exactly,
yeah.
And we made it. I think everyone's gonna have some sort of eagle motif on it. You can't always see it in the film, but everyone's got like a bit of eagle.
Yeah.
So the idea is that this entire clan have Aquila looks like an eagle, and it's all based on that. So what's the ultimate prize? Judge eagles and things like that.
And also it's a mirror of sort of like the whole
Yes.
eagle stuff on the
okay.
mega city sort of thing. So we do think a lot about this sort of stuff. Overthink a lot about this sort of stuff, even if it doesn't come across.
No, it does. You mentioned also the Welsh Quarry?
Yes.
Because if you're making British science fiction, you have at some point to go and be in a quarry, don't you?
I know where they all are, all over the country.
So how was it finding the locations and then getting everybody there and getting it all sorted? That must have been a big thing.
Yeah, logistics. I think that's why it took 4 years, was basically logistics and saving up money, because spread over 4 years, the budget's not much, but if we'd have done it in like a short period, it'd have been too much.
Yeah. And because you sort of like you've given it away then, because you were talking about this next door, 4 years
Yeah.
in production.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the 4 years includes, scripts and everything else. Maybe 2 years actually filming, and that's the worst part, because, people have other commitments, people drop out. That's another reason why we went, all the gang,
Got
mask them up
yeah.
in case somebody can't make it. I'm sometimes in there, Dan Kerry George is sometimes a mutant,
Yeah.
we really have to
okay.
mix it up.
You
Yeah.
can put somebody different behind the mask, yeah. Okay.
Especially when, they walk off one set and they're in Wales, they're in a quarry in Wales. They walk into the next scene, they're in a quarry down in Portland, in Dorset.
Right.
It's like getting the same people to turn up.
Continuity.
Yeah.
Okay. And Edmund, as the professional actor, what did he make of it all? This sort of science fiction comic stuff.
He enjoyed it. He was a
brilliant.
total pro
Was
all
he?
the time. Yeah.
I think he just said that a lot of pro actors would be moaning about the rain or not having the sort of like the home comforts or
Yeah.
things like that, whereas the fans just didn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of. But yeah, Edmund was great, and I think he just enjoyed that sort of like, I can be this sort of badass sort of like ex-judge, and
Right.
yeah, I think it was just something different, something that you wouldn't normally expect to get, get that kind of role.
It was sort of strange dealing with somebody who was so prepared, because he was like, he said a line of script when he was acting. I said, I don't think that's right. I went, I think it is. I went back to the script and went, oh yeah, you are right. And I'd written it.
And he must have enjoyed it, because he comes back for the next film, which we'll talk about in a minute. I've forgotten the running time. How long is the film?
About 27 minutes.
27 minutes. Yeah, I thought it was about half an hour. Yeah. Okay.
That's mainly Steve's fault though. It was a lot shorter, but Steve kept adding stuff. But as he was having to do it, I thought, well, that's...
Yeah, I mean, originally the bike, the whole opening scene was going to be a lot more truncated, basically kind of random sort of flashes of
Right.
stuff going on and things like that. I mean, we did probably push it a little bit. It's a bit Tom and Jerry kitchen thing, where it's this endless, boat chase
right,
where
yeah.
he's just like,
Same living
how
room
far
way.
away is he? Sort of?
Like Blue Thunder time, where he's on the rail tracks. And it's like
Yeah,
30 seconds. It lasts forever, sort of thing.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Conrad. We're going to get the fans' reaction, because I brought a fan with me. So,
Oh, geez.
before we ask these two Steves about what was the fan reaction, what do you make of the film?
I mean, I love Judge Minty. I think it's a film that I've used to sort of, I don't know, explain Dread to people.
Right.
I guess, like, I mean, especially from in the States, there's not a lot of institutional knowledge about Dread. Sort of, he's not a character that people kind of know. Maybe they know the Stallone movie or something like that. I think, I really like the film, as sort of on its own, just as a way of sort of like, here's like sort of not like sort of more serious, more like sort of real thing or something that people can read or can watch to kind of get a sense of it. But I like it's just I think it's a fun movie that is something that it feels like the labor of love that I think you guys have put the work into. I think especially like in those opening Mega City 1 scenes, where there's so much, I forget what you call it, but where it's just like where it's so thick with references and all these little things, like each, like,
It's like here's your Easter eggs, Philly roots.
It's a shotgun blast of just like every scene that has like a couple like signs that are things, or like the radio chatter where it's like that stuff.
I mean, that's one thing. I mean, we haven't sort of mentioned is like how much the audio sort of like added to it. So there's like Jared Butler and his team sort of like doing all the radio chatter and sort of and Mike Carroll writing the dialogue for that, and that kind of I think that elevated everything up.
Right.
Yeah, I think that adds just a depth of like making it like realistic. Or
Yeah.
feeling like
I mean, when we received it back, we thought, we should have just done the film based on just this chatter.
Right.
And also Travis Heffron, you know,
Yeah.
did a fantastic job, and I feel like it's on the score.
Yeah.
But like, you know, when we were mixing the sound, and Travis was like, "You're putting so much work into this,"
Yeah.
you know, and it really sells it, because I think that's a lot of the time where you could have the most beautifully shot sort of like fan film, but if the audio's terrible. Or a bit sort of like cheap, then that's where it
He
falls
did a lot of
down.
analog as well. You know, he wasn't all like, you know, making stuff digitally. He was like, you know, boots were boots on gravel sort
Right.
of thing. He was borrowing the boots sort of thing. And he was mixing it in properly. It was like, I think you're using it as an excuse to try some old techniques. I think.
Oh, okay. I mean, I think it's the best version of Dread and Megacity 1 on screen, and Conrad and I have talked about the other two films.
Yeah. I think it's the one that is like, it feels the most direct from direct from the comics. I feel like, because I think the Stallone version, there's sort of, I don't know, it's like, it feels like it comes through a lens or something like that in the Stallone version, or something like they're trying to movie it up somehow, and then the 2012 version feels like they're then going from this, like, it feels like almost an evolution from the Stallone version
Yeah.
to become a different thing entirely, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I thought the decision to sort of, in a way, see what happens to Minty at the end of the comic. You know, he steps out of the frame in a way. So what happens next? And I
Yeah.
thought that was brilliant that we get to see it.
I think there was a bit of direction we gave Edmund. It's probably it's probably not actually there, but in that actual frame, it's a very small frame. It looks like he's smiling.
Right.
So I gave that to him and said, you look like you're smiling. A little bit smile to yourself as you're walking out the gate. It looked well.
Yeah, no, I really like that sort of that shot. I just remember us carrying like little bits of polystyrene when the doors open.
Yeah.
So we had the light sort of on Edmund, and we were just sort of literally, me and Steve, we like a couple of bits of polystyrene to sort of block the light.
Right.
And just
okay.
sort of like, you know, doing that and going, oh yeah, that's great, you know, it's like cheap as chips, all our way of doing it, but yeah.
To make the effect of the doors opening, presumably. Or,
Yeah.
Okay. And the fan reaction generally, I mean, it must be universally loved, isn't it?
It's extremely positive. I mean, we were because people can be very, I won't say critical, I'll say passionate.
Yes.
Passionate
Yeah.
about it. Mm-hmm. Well, I was expecting to get slated a little bit, but it was very positive.
Right.
I think the worst thing was kind of like when your work is used to bash other work. So like, you know, people go, oh yeah, this is much better than, you know, so, but they really go to town on that sort of thing. Why couldn't it have been like that? You know, whereas, you know, it's like, say like the Carl Urban sort of like Dread. It's like, yeah, you're pitching it to a big audience. We're doing a fan film, you know, so it's like comparing apples and oranges, you know. We're not reliant on whether this makes money or, you know, we can't make any money on it. So, you know, we're free to just, you know, suit ourselves and, you know.
I mean, you know, we're not going to ask you the question, but obviously it's a passion project and not for profit. It's cost you two guys quite a bit of money, I'm guessing. You know.
Yeah, I mean, between the three of us, I mean, Dan obviously put in a lot of effort as well and lots of time.
Right. And the two uniforms.
Yeah,
Two
yeah.
uniforms.
Well, one of the uniforms was he got to take that to who was it?
DNA.
DNA to show them it before they were sort of. I think they're actually already in the middle of creating theirs, weren't they?
Right.
But I think it was just basically to sort of see what elements of the comic stuff would work for you know, for that. So I think like the green. I think originally they weren't going to go with any green on the Carl Urban one. So actually, I think that kind of sort of came from that, and they did borrow the helmet for a while. I don't know whether it made any difference.
They had plenty of options.
Yeah. So it's. I think it's just that kind of thing. You know, obviously they. You know, I remember Alex Garland sort of saying, you know, oh, you know, we can't have that big eagle because you can like snag it on curtains and things like that. But I think a lot of it is not necessarily the practicalities. It's just like what the rest of the world looks like.
Yeah.
So you know,
Like jazz.
if you do that, you know, if you have like, you know, all the ostentatious sort of like comic stuff, then you got to follow that through with all the other costumes,
Everything else has got to
all
sort
the
of,
set dressing,
match
all the
having a big
vehicles
eagle,
and things like that. So, you know, but because the bulk of our stuff was set out in the Cursed Earth,
Yeah.
you know, it's like we can't really sort of like change a quarry to, you know, to be sort of like, you know, in tone. It's a quarry, you know. It's sort of we can stick a few wreck buildings and, you know, that's it.
How have Rebellion been on the two projects?
I think on Judge Mincy they were very, very supportive, very positive.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay. When you look back at any sort of passion project of your own, you always see bits and pieces, I'm guessing, that you think, oh, I wish I could have change that, or whatever. Are there bits that you would like to have done differently, or?
Well, I think that was the main reason I sort of got involved with the Strontium Dog film, because I was sort of like, never again sort of thing. And it was sort of it was a case of there were a number of things. I don't know if you see them on screen because Steve glossed over them all, but just not allowing enough time to do things, just that sort of thing, and things not being planned properly. And I wanted to maybe address that, but you can't really see it on screen. And, learn from the old mistakes and make completely new ones. Yeah.
I think you can be quite hard on your past selves, like when your past self was freezing their arse off on Welsh mountainside and making whatever decisions at the time. So I think I probably would have liked to have used more of Magna in the Megacity stuff. I don't think I got the best out of it. Looking back at it, and we did like recce's and sort of things like that beforehand. And I looked at the recce and I go, oh yeah, that was a much better camera angle than what we ended up shooting. And it's it's like little bits and sort of pieces and things like that. But it's a lot of it mainly seems to be go, oh, I wish I had that light or that bit of camera gear, sort of there. But I think considering. I think the main thing was, and we didn't learn this on the Strontium Dog one, was we need some people to help us.
Yeah.
Like runners and sort of things like that. I think it's one thing to ask people to be on camera, and sort of do that in the but to be sort of basically doing all the sort of all the other work.
And that sometimes meant that because I was the point of contact, I'd be the guy running off set to change the keys because the lock's broken in the quarry, or get I'm going to run out of sandwiches. Director goes and gets the sandwiches. It doesn't really work out properly.
Yeah. I mean, it's trying. I mean, the main thing is trying to strike that balance between, like, if you're a big production, then people might not sort of agree to let you use the land, or they want more.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go, obviously these guys, have got no money. So it's like, short of having like a like hobo sort of like stick over the shoulder and not a hanky sort of thing. It's like we couldn't have looked more impoverished. I think better cars would have, or a 4-wheel drive sort of thing for Denali would have. That probably would have been the main sort of thing. Lots of scraped bottoms of car.
So I'll just say judgeminty.com. You can go there.
Yeah,
you can watch the film. It's still there. It's fantastic, and you got lots of details about it up there as well. Let's turn to 2016 Search Destroyer Strontium Dog and Star-Lord fan film. I think, to give it its full title. Now this time you wrote it together. And directed it together.
Yeah.
How long of a gap was there between finishing one and starting thinking about the next one?
Not a lot. Basically, we sort of toyed with the idea of doing a Rogue Trooper trailer.
Right.
So basically something that was manageable. And I think, like Steve, you're more of a Rogue Trooper fan.
Yeah. Well, I could just see. It didn't need a narrative. It could just be nice and visual. Lots of effort.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that sort of thing. The way we could pick and choose stuff, so we didn't have to worry about building a story. But then we were at the Lakes in 2013, I guess.
Yeah.
It was sort of like late 2013. So this would be about 6 months after Judge Minty had gone online.
It'll have been at a screening, perhaps.
Yeah, probably a screening.
Oh, right. Okay.
And John Wagner asked us if we fancy doing Strontium Dog.
I think he might have been joking.
He might have been joking.
But you didn't take it as a joke.
You really can't tell with John. We said, it's like John asking us. We said, like, yes. I mean, I think it was just because even then when we said yes, we'd do it, we then said, but we're going to do it as a trailer.
You were going to do it as a joke Barclaycard advert, I think. Right?
Yeah, it was kind of like the cost of strontium. So like,
oh, I know you talked about the economics of strontium.
Yeah, so sort of like time bombs would cost this, electronauts would cost this per charge, that sort of thing. So it would be there'd be Johnny Alpha sort of fighting on top of a train, and that sort of, and the happy stick would be sort of like free of charge, sort of thing. Which kind of like there's a little bit of a remnant of that in the film, werewolves moaning about the cost of the time bombs. Yeah. And then we sort of did it, and I don't know why we decided to do it. Was it, we thought it'd be easier to get into film festivals if it was
yeah, it may have been that.
I think it was that, so we said, like, we're going to do it, but it's only going to be a 10-minute short.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's 20 minutes. So
And you pack a lot into that 20 minutes because you've got, as you say, you've got to pick and choose in a way from the history of Strontium Dog and write your own story. But there's all, I mean, I don't think there's. Are there any particular stories that you were using? Because it seems
there's
like,
a little bit. There's a little bit. I mean, like the gunfighter is kind of like is it Death's Head, the Willy Blanco story.
Oh, right, yes. You and I did on the podcast. I
Yeah,
think,
like Duncan Pizer, I'm calling you out, and he's got two arms. It was going to be a bit more convoluted than that. We sort of toyed with the idea of that it's basically Norm's setting up the mutants, so they were basically fake mutants.
Right.
But it was getting a bit, Dan goes, no, that's just too confusing. We were always like struggling a little bit between like, oh yeah, is that an alien or is that a mutant, and what they should look like. So we kind of stripped it back a little bit, gave them the robot arms, and so there was a little bit of that. The Chuck Waller comes from the Star-Lord story.
Yes.
With Billy Joe, the Two-Faced Terror, and. There's just like just a little sort of like cherry picks of stuff. There's specifically a line where I think we gave it to Durham Red, or Midden Face, where it's like I wouldn't kill you for that.
Yes, Midden Face, I think.
Yeah.
And the end, that's taken straight from the story as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's from the very first sort of story where he gives the
money.
Gives the money to the
Johnny Alpha's always giving the money away.
Yeah, always giving the money away. Yeah.
Much to Wolf's disgust.
Yeah.
So you've got Edmund Dane comes back as a villain, which is great.
Yeah.
You've got obviously the fans again, several recognisable faces.
Yeah.
Got to quickly shout out how lovely it was to see Dave Evans as
Yeah.
Kidney, sad loss to us all. And then you've got Matthew Simpson and Kevin Horsham as Johnny and Wolf.
Yeah.
Again, you found those through the actors' websites, did you?
Yeah. And we approached them same way we did Edmund. We put a document together. Obviously, this time we could say and look at Judgmenty.
This is what we did before, right?
And we courted them.
Well, I mean, I think it's useful to. I mean, if you've got a film saying like, yeah, this is what we've done, and we've self-funded it, and that's it. And at the time, I don't know what kind of views Minty had at the time, but it was in the hundreds of thousands, and I think we said like, yeah, it's not Dredd. We don't expect to get the same sort of amount of views, but this is the character. We did. You do these sort of like pitch sort of documents where it kind of just gives a sort of like a potted history of what's involved, and that's it.
Okay. And you did, and I know from the behind the scenes bits, you've done fight training with them and all sorts.
Oh yeah, that was enjoyable.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a shame really, because we worked it all out and it was beautifully choreographed. I can't say it. Choreographed. And then we got to the actual location and it was these big pebbles and everyone was sort of stumbling around on them. It was easier for them to fall, but the actual they was going, we can't get around the same way, sort of thing.
Yeah, it was just like kind of wading through treacle a bit, and me as well, sort of like filming it. It's just kind of like slowed everything down,
stumbling and tripping.
And unfortunately, a few space cabbages were killed in the.
Where was this?
This was a Dungeness. So it's a place. By Marconi's Radio Shed, so where Marconi did experiments,
right?
And it was a kind of, we were basically looking for it's a desert, and we need some kind of building that looks Western-ish. And I go, brilliant, that'll do.
That'll do.
And we went down there, and it's right by Dungeness power station, nuclear power station. So it's a bit of a it's a bit desolate sort of thing, and our
heavy armed police sort of presence down there.
Right,
so we're all there with his ray guns, going,
they were more worried about drones and something like that. Have you got a drone? No,
you can't.
You definitely got a drone. So no drones. I mean, I did try sticking a GoPro on a stick to get one shot, and it was terrible. So I kind of wish I had a drone for that, but
it would have blown away on that day.
It would have blown away. It was the first day was very rainy and very windy, and we kind of if you look at the fights, the wide shot was when we basically shot it in kind of like three main sort of passes. So we did a wide shot, and then a sort of close up shot following Johnny, and another close up shot sort of following Wolf, and then just let Tony Hudson sort of edit sort of around that, and then there was a few sort of isolated shots. I think like when Wolf brings the hammer down on somebody. So it was fun, but the weather was a pain. Sort of, we just basically sat in the pub until it got less torrential, and but it was still raining a little bit. at the start of it, and then it brightened up, and it was all fine after that.
And Conrad and I have talked about transferring the look of comic book characters to screen can be quite challenging as to what will work on the page and what works on screen. Johnny and Wolf, they look perfect. Now you've got Johnny's suit and Johnny's helmet, both of which are complicated, aren't they?
Yes. Well, Steve and Dan liaised with Carlos on that.
Yeah, I mean we did a few versions. So like originally Dan was sort of sculpting it analog.
Yeah.
Traditional sort of sculpt, and he saw I did that one. And I go, oh, that needs to shift. And he go, yeah, oh yeah, but that needs. And by that at that point, sort of 3D printers were sort of becoming commercially available. So we looked into sort of like the cost of getting it 3D printed. Go, oh yeah, we might as well buy one.
Right.
So I mean, still, I don't know, there's about $2,000 or $1,500, something like that. So it's still a lot of money. But basically, it was like you get to keep it, Dan.
Right.
So did a few. Like Dan did one where he kind of like updated it, and it was all a bit more angular and a bit more sort of manufactured. And you could hear Carlos, Carlos didn't even need to say it. No. So I went back and said because I do 3D, and so I did like a few versions. I did one which was like even close to the early ones, where it was a bit more bulbous, but it was a bit too much. And then I looked at the concept that Carlos had done for a pilot, a TV series, that didn't happen. And I thought, yeah, that's because it had been scaled. I don't know whether Carlos had intentionally scaled it back a bit, but I go, oh yeah, well, if Carlos had already drawn it. It was aimed for a TV sort of thing, so I'll match that as close as possible. I think the only thing we didn't have was the codpiece, because people get the heebie-jeebies about the Stallone film.
Yeah.
So we pretty much copied that exactly, and got Victoria from Ultimate Leathers.
Yeah, something like that.
Sort of like to do the undersuit.
Yeah.
Is it pigskin suede?
Yeah, it's like pigskin suede. Because basically, I mean, the thought was it needed to be matte rather than sort of shiny leather sort of thing. Although, I don't know. It's I'd be interested to see what it would look like with, say, like the Carl Urban leathers, because that's all kind of patchwork and a bit colourless. I mean, that in green, I think would work quite well.
Okay.
But I think it was a kind of like, this is the budget that you sort of like working to, and I kind of tweaked colours a little bit where I wanted to be a bit more earthy, dusty, sort of thing. So I tweaked colours in the grade, so the suit in real life is a bit more bottle green, and by the time I get it onto actually in the edit, I can sort of go, I can make that a bit more like an olive,
right,
sort of colour. So, but yeah, I mean, it was nice. I mean, like, Carlos was a joy to to talk with and sort of like natter about sort of stuff, and I got this sort of photo of him sort of like I took the helmet down to him at Ice Comic Con, I think it was, in Birmingham, and he put the helmet on, John sitting next to him,
we got some good to and fro with John as well, didn't we? Because we asked about the voice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, about what it should sound.
What Johnny Alpha sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he basically said sort of Daniel Craig, sort of kind of well spoken, sort of. Gave that to Matt, and because Johnny's a Salisbury boy, but I didn't really see him having a West Country accent.
I mean, and he picked the midden face for us as well, because we had three guys.
Oh yes.
Send us like little screen tests, and we sent them off to John to pick one.
And he picked the one that sounded most like Midden Face. Fantastic. Conrad, the look of the characters, they look great, don't they?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's really, for Search and Destroy especially, is so much just the feels like just the comic on the page, and is full of all the little references and stuff, especially that first doghouse scene where just all of the, if you know the characters and the comics, then I know I was just like, oh, that's Kidney, like, whoa. Like, oh man, look at Midden Face, all his lumps are like pulsating. I never thought of that,
I mean, they were expensive.
Expensive cameos.
Cameos.
Right.
It was like he was spending so much money on this just for someone who's going to just fly by. Sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I did even think, should we bring him back at the end just to get our money's worth? But because I mean, like Ben Mars did a great job on Midden Face's lumps, sort of thing, and Yeah, that was a tricky one because we filmed that in two separate shots. So like basically, a guy who played Harvey couldn't make the shoot for the bolts, but we thought, oh well, we can probably work around that because it's mainly just on him. And then Adam had an allergic reaction and came up in actual lumps a week before we were supposed to do the group shoot. So actually, he was shot separately he was shot at the same time as we shot Guy, and I, because it was a green screen, I just sort of cut and pasted him. But it's just like, yeah, you know, you just come out of hospital, you know, after an allergic reaction, you know, so like, we can't be sticking latex on you, you know, on your head. So you know, we sort of bummed that, and it worked out okay. But it was just that kind of. We seem to have a bit of that with.
Yeah.
We had like double booking with the cabin scene as well, where we were supposed to be in the bigger studio, and the studio double booked, so the cabin barely fit.
Right.
That was Karen doing Karen Shaw doing the on that, and yeah, it was annoying because it meant I couldn't light the green screen,
Right.
because it would be too sort of overlit everywhere. They just made it, it's that sort of thing where again, this isn't my fault, but it's going to make more work for me.
Make your job harder,
Yeah,
right.
but
And also challenges because actors sometimes get haircuts during midway.
oh yeah, yeah.
Kevin playing Wolf has a haircut at some point, doesn't he?
Well, he actually had shorter hair at the beginning,
Oh right, okay.
and then he's grown it. So the first shot was the compound stuff, which is down at Fort Borstal, and he had it was long at the front and kind of like, you know, sort of short at the back, kind of hipster Wolf.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And we go, all right, you know. So we kind of thought he would be sticking with that, and he's go, all right, as long as it's consistent. But then by the time we came to Dungeness, he's actually got, and Dungeness was perfect, and we go, oh, right, okay. So all right, you know, and then we ended up doing some pickup. There's longer still, and it's like. So we did make some sort of cracks about, oh yeah, it's all that mucking about with time bombs and time drogues and things like that. You know,
And,
plays havoc with the old follicles.
Yeah.
We did like promotional shots at the same time, and Matt had grown a beard for a part, and we couldn't ask, you know, it was a good part, so we couldn't ask him to shave it off.
Yeah.
So we had to like Photoshop that out, sort of
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
One of the challenges. I mean, I actually quite like Wolf's cropped haircut. And of course, Carlos, as you say, heavily involved. He did that beautiful sort of illustration of the both, and with the short hair.
Yeah.
And it looked, and you know, of course, it's Carlos. It looks fantastic,
Yeah.
doesn't it? And there was 3D models made of those as well.
Yeah.
of course.
Basically, there's a place called My 3D Twin, and they kind of do the kind of like family, sports, business sort of things where you basically go in and there's a process called photogrammetry where there's 100 cameras all in a kind of an array around you,
Right.
and you're basically sort of there, and it just sort of takes a photo, and then computers do their magic, and they basically create
Make it the 3D model.
create a 3D model, you know. So we had that. I mean, it was mainly because we wanted one for the skimmer scenes on, you know, on the bikes. So we had like an actual 3D model of the character, and at the time I was like, oh, you know, we're here. And how much does it cost? Oh yeah, that's not too bad. And
Okay.
so we had that, and we could get like a 3D print that we could get made. You know. Lee Shepherd.
Yeah, we had two
so-
sets done.
Yeah, we had two sets. So I think like one set went to Carlos, and then one set went to the respective actors.
Yeah.
Sort of,
So they've got an action figure of themselves.
yeah, they
Yes.
got a little action figure of themselves.
And a big life-size cutout as well.
Oh, fantastic. Conrad, what do you make of Search Destroy?
Oh man, I mean, honestly, even more than Judgment, Search Destroy is really like. It feels like what I like about Strontium Dog, sort of, you know, in one concentrated place. You know, you got the stuff, like I said, with the doghouse and seeing all these characters. Even little stuff like there's the scene where they're traveling to the job and it's just them, you know, in their room on the ship, and just a montage of being bored because they're forced to be in there, you know, because Johnny's a mutant or whatever, is really great and really picks up parts of stuff that you see in the comics and stuff. I love that, you know, you get all the time weapons in that, which I think is an underrated, or is a part that is such a key part of Strontium Dog that I think is, you know, it wouldn't be a Strontium Dog film if it didn't have that stuff. Almost.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether I think we made a list of like stuff that we wanted to sort of be in there.
Yeah.
I think the one thing we found a little bit of a challenge was it's like the pitch guy sort of meeting. It's like Johnny becomes super easy belly and inconvenience, if you
Right,
know, because he's got like so many powers.
Right.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I think there's also the challenge, or it's something I thought was interesting was I think like how to explain how some of these things work.
Yeah, I mean that
too.
was the one we kind of struggled a little bit with. I mean, we get basically Wolf doing a bit of exposition.
Yeah.
You know, I send them into next week, or you
Yeah,
know,
that's the beauty, isn't it? You go, well, why doesn't he just use a time gun all the time?
Yeah.
And you think, because they're very expensive. That's right.
No, that was definitely a good setup. I think, I think it's interesting with the fan film generally. I guess you have to assume that most people have a vague idea
Yeah, exactly.
of the characters already, because I noticed that both of these films lack the first character that appears in all the actual, like, or in the Hollywood Dread movies, the narrator explaining and sort of the situation going into things. You know?
yeah. I mean, there was because I think John suggested opening with the kind of traditional dialogue, where it's like, you know, it's 2180 or whatever, and you know, there's been nuclear war and like criminal scum of the universe, blah blah blah. No
There's
escape from the structure.
there's actually a lot of setup for Strontium Dog when you think about it.
Yeah.
Like, it's the future. There's mutants. They are bounty hunters. Also, there's time stuff. You know.
Well, I think that's the beauty. We try to go for.
Yeah.
We always try and really minimise the exposition. Just build it up as we go along. A little
Absolutely.
comment here, a little, you know, nuance there.
I mean, there's stuff in there. I mean, like at the end. I mean, I don't know how many people get it or don't get it, but the whole Johnny activating the time grenade and whether the Colonel hearing that scream, that's actually the Colonel's own scream.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so he's actually sort of basically setting things up like Johnny's eyes glow red when he's using his X-ray stuff.
Yeah.
So he's seeing that, and it's a bootstrap paradox, and
That's how he knows it works.
yeah. So it's kind of that sort of thing where, like, you know, we try and think all these things through and give it a bit of a
In case anyone asks.
in case anyone.
So it looks fantastic. The performance is fantastic. The filming and everything is just wonderful. Did you? I mean, on this one, did you manage to get right all the things you wanted to get right with Minty? Do you think? Or was
no.
there still?
No, it was less bad.
Right.
In that, you know, we didn't have quite enough time to film things. I think the main thing was just not setting up the sets. You know, basically we filmed for, like, say, 2 days at a location, but we really could have done with 2 days before that to set everything up. Whereas we were basically setting stuff up while we're trying to talk to the actors and get everything up and running. And
It's like that, you know, having extra people to do it. So, I mean, like the Chuck Waller Cage, I would have loved to have had. I don't know why we didn't have the skeleton from. I know we filmed that first, but if we'd had the skeleton from the Dungeness sort of stuff, well, that would have been a nice bit of set dressing.
Right.
But you know, we kind of obviously didn't sort of plan, or you know. Also, I mean, the problem is like if you've got all these body parts, you've got to get rid of them at some point, and it's like it's not the sort of thing that you could just stuff in the. You know, in the rubbish,
In the rubbish.
or in the, there's no recycling bin. You know,
whenever,
for that.
whenever we went for lunch, we had to leave somebody on the beach with the skeleton in
Right.
case somebody just thought, "Why is there a skeleton
Why
in
is
the middle
it?
of the
Okay.
beach?"
Yeah, we had like a dog walker and like dogs sniffing around, going, "Oh my god!" You know, I thought like, you know, Christmas would come all at once. You know, so I've got a
First
whole
time-
skeleton here.
First 5 minutes of any police procedural.
Yeah, I just had visions of this dog dragging the skeleton away, trying to, you know, launch after it.
It was quite funny in Dungeness because we were told, you know, the people around here are quite private. That's why they come in this area, sort of thing. So, you know, try not to get in the way. So we were filming and we saw this guy in his sort of like dressing gown, looking over.
Cup of
sort
tea
thing. We
or a
thought,
mug of tea,
Oh, no,
yeah.
'cause he said in the past they've just come and stood in the set because you can't do anything about it. And he's looking and going, "Oh, what are you doing here?" He says, "Oh, we're making a fan film. It's based on the 2000 AD character Strontium Dog." Went, "Oh, yes, of course it is. There's Johnny, there's Wolf."
Oh, that's awesome.
Fantastic. Oh, good. Well, strontiumdogfanfilm.com. It's up there, and it played at several comic festivals and film festivals.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sort of fan films have had a bit of a sort of like funny sort of like past 10 years, I guess. So, I mean, when we did Minty, it was probably the sweet spot because the Dread film had come out, and now, you know, because genre stuff is like even more saturated. So, I mean, I guess like Iron Man sort of started about 2009. So, you've got. I mean, I don't think there's many people doing the Marvel fan films.
I remember, yeah, 'cause there was I feel like there was a whole thing, like an era for it in like the early 2000s or
Yeah.
something. Like maybe, yeah, once they started really making the Marvel movies now. Like the niche is filled, sort of.
And there's also been the sort of things where people like raise huge amounts of money to make something and then not made it, or the copyright holder has sort of like shut them down, saying like, no, if you're raising $1 million to make this kind of fan film,
I mean, we were never really interested in doing a fan film based on another film.
Right.
It was always going to be an adaptation. We were always interested in like, how can we bring this off the page and what would it look like on screen. Basically, we made these because we wanted to see them.
Right.
I think, because at the time we started Judgmental, we didn't even know about the 2012 film. So it was that was like news to us.
Yeah.
When we sort of did it, and we were going, oh,
in too deep by then.
Yeah. That was. I mean, I don't know whether because we obviously had like some contact with Alex Garland. We were very sort of like wary of saying like, oh, we don't want to be shut down, or
it did say some nice things in the press. It got boosted the interest a lot.
Right.
And there's the Minty is the law on the wall during one of the scenes. That's
Right.
I think it's like that's why you kind of want people to kind of like pull together and not everybody going off doing their own sort of thing. It's kind of fine if you've got a massive sort of corporation, they're big enough to do it, but when it's like plucky indie British sort of thing, it's like you haven't got time to be sort of having these little spats and sort of just kind of work together and all get on.
Right.
But we had like this sage advice to you.
Oh yeah, finish it. Yeah. Basically, we saw him in the pub. It was after the screening, wasn't it? I went up to him and said, I just want to say thank you for all your help and talking about it and stuff. And all he said to me was, oh yeah, could you finish it? Which has been words lived by since then, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, they're both fantastic.
Thank you.
On behalf of the fans, they're just wonderful. Well done. And I know John and Carlos couldn't have been more proud of, Search Destroy. They were they couldn't love it more, could they?
Yeah, it was a sort of like like a dream come true, sort of like to chat with Carlos and sort of like do right by Carlos. It's because you see all these sort of things where it almost got made, going back as far as the pilot, and you hear all these things, but even if it's a sort of like a low budget end, it's like that. Okay, here's what Johnny Alpha might look like on screen,
right?
And sort of. And for Carlos, and John and Alan as well, of course, to give it the thumbs up, The same with Judgmental,
So it reminds me when we showed it to John, this sort of partially finished version, nearly finished version. It was at like the Everyman in Leeds, and I'd created like galactic groats as tokens.
I was there.
Oh yes, for to give to people to redeem against a drink, and halfway through the people who were running it went, no one's redeeming the drinks. I said, why not? He says, we asked people, we wanted to keep them as souvenirs.
Yeah, I remember I was there at that one. Yes, fantastic. And John was there,
Mm.
Great stuff. I mean, the obvious question from the fans will be, and this will probably make your shoulders slump, will there be any more?
I was just going to slam the door there.
No and yes. As in, me and Steve, basically, along the lines of we didn't want to get anyone else involved because of all won the money and just the logistics of it all. We've sort of pieced together a fun little thing, haven't we, Steve?
Yeah. We got stuff that I could sort of like I could do something with. It's just me being kind of like in the mood to do it, and it's that sort of thing where you hear what other people are doing and you go, oh, well, let them do it. So.
It's sort of a Rogue Trooper world-based thing,
Oh,
isn't it?
okay.
Yes. Basically, starts with all these projects. Dan makes a helmet. Well, that's a helmet. Let's make a film about it.
Okay.
I mean, I have got a Talk Marder helmet, but I'm not going to do anything with it. It's just like, that's too contentious. But yeah, I think we've done the sort of the kind of the scope of like different helmets. We've done the Judge Dredd one. We've done the Strontium Dog one. We've got this Rogue Trooper one.
It's only going to be like 2 minutes maximum, though. It's just a joke.
Definitely. Unless I slow it down. I'm just going to do it in slow motion for like 20 minutes. It lets you 20 minutes.
The Garth Marenghi principle. Any scene without dialogue.
Well, it's been fantastic talking to you, gents, about these two wonderful films, which, as we say, are widely available to watch. I'm guessing everybody's listening has probably seen them. Go and watch them again because they're so good. Guest projects, you're working with co-creator of Judge Minty character. You're working with Mick McMahon on a comic.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us about Joe and his killer robot dad?
Well, Joe and his Killer Robot Dad, it was, I think it was something that we came up with whilst we were working on these projects, along the lines of, we're dealing with these IPs that we can't really do anything with, but we're getting this skill set of how to promote and how to create narratives and, how to, adapt them to different formats and stuff. And we just thought, wouldn't it be good to just do something of our own, and we sort of worked with, we sort of came up with the idea of like, I think we got a review recently saying it was a positive review, saying it was well trodden ground, and it's like it is well trodden ground. But what can we do it in the same way as like in 2000 AD? How can we just put a bit of a dark spin on it, sort of thing? It's a comic book that's aimed for like pre-teens and above, sort of thing, and it's done in a different way in that it's Mick McMahon sort of creates all the concept work for the characters, and then Steve creates 3D models of all the characters, and then we use those. Then goes back to Mick, and Mick creates thumbnail layouts for the entire narrative, and then I render them out using the models. It's an interesting way of doing stuff. It's similar to some animation, but it's using it for a comic.
Also means we can do like little bits of animation
Yeah.
because we already have models for characters and
Right.
things like that. So which is quite useful for promotional sort of stuff. So it's kind of just seeing what kind of works, and without having our hands tied as to how we can promote it, we can kind of just like please ourselves and and do it. So we're sort of Sam Reed, who's doing the script, he's doing the script, writing the script. Me do words good.
Yeah.
He sort of kind of like doing an overall arc for issue 2 and 3.
Right.
I think that's what I like the plan is, and go back to that, and then whether Mick needs to do more concepts, and so there's just like a lot of back and forth with it, and whether I need to do new 3D models I need to do.
Right. And you have
Yeah.
great presence at conventions because the stand really looks great.
Yeah. That's something we can do.
Right. You can do that now.
Yeah.
You've learned the skill set. So that's Joe and his killerrobotdad.com, and again, I'll put all the links to all these in the show notes and up on the website. Go and check it out. And will we be seeing you with Joe and his Killer Robot Dad at Lawless, or?
I wouldn't have thought so.
We'll be down there, but
Yes.
not just.
Not the stand.
It'd be nice to do a show as a punter because
Yeah.
I mean we've done Lawless before, but obviously we sort of did it as kind of like part of Planet Replicas or promoting Strong Team Dog or Judge Minty. So
Right.
it'd be quite nice to do one where we can just go to the bar
Yeah.
and not worry about having to pack up a table.
Yes.
Right.
I'll take a big van full of stuff with us.
Yeah, carrying stuff is sort of like it's a
Right.
game for the young.
Right. Okay. Okay. But you might be back in a quarry at some point.
Oh, we've been in quarries.
We did some of the Rogue Trooper World stuff in a quarry.
Right.
It was a very nice quarry.
It was a good quarry. I can recommend it.
Did you have better cars this time? No.
Not quite. We had to go up.
We had problems with locks again.
Yeah.
It seems to be a recurring theme, like problems with locks, Steve knackering his leg,
Right.
sort of,
And the director having to go and get the sandwiches.
yeah.
Because I want to say I've definitely seen that Judge Minty quarry in other movies now.
Yeah.
Oh
Yes,
yeah,
it has
it
been,
was Clash of the Titans
Yeah.
reboot, sort of.
It's definitely one of the, it's where I have one of those like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where they're like, whoa!
It was weird because I mean we did the recce and it was completely different to the place where we actually ended up.
Yeah.
So the bit with the Gila Munja,
Yeah.
Yeah.
don't know if I'm pronouncing it right.
Close enough.
Close enough. The cave was it was more like a kind of railway arch
Yeah.
sort of thing where we looked at originally, and then when we got there, said, "Oh no, you're over in this bit." And I go, "Oh right, okay."
Yeah.
And you go, "Oh, that kind of the bit where Edmund walks down, it's got the
Yeah.
Land Raider, and they go, 'Yeah, that looks brilliant. That's even better than the one that we had.'" So that was cool. But
Making stuff up on the spot. The little pool of water. We didn't know that was going to be there. We just
Right.
quickly went, let's put some rocks around it. This is what he spotted. Sort of thing.
it's kind of like you try and plan as much as you can, but you got to improvise
You
a
gotta
lot of the
adapt when
time,
you
you
get to
know,
the chorus.
because
Right.
you know somebody will throw a curveball, you know, at you. It's yeah, it's
There's
it-
one
it's-
in the town in Judge Minty where we're running out of time, and it's where they go to the shrine and it all explodes. And I think that was Steve going, we're running out of time. He goes, oh, it just explodes. I'll do it later, sort of thing. Yes, that'll work.
Well, that was, I mean, the shrine was great. 'Cause, I mean, a lot of that was already
It was
there.
already there?
It was already there. It was basically, we called it the dark place. It was basically the kind of spare room where they shoved all their crap at Magna.
Oh, right.
So I mean, there was a really like death trappy sort of looking, kind of like being flooded sort of
Yeah.
steps. So we go, that's great, but there's no lighting. I'm not going down there. But like Dan and Barry Renshaw, you know, who did the storyboards,
Yeah.
you know, they kind of like did a lot of set dressing and sort of,
Right.
you know, which is, you know, they did a fantastic job sort of in that, and also shout out to Connor as well, who
Yeah.
did storyboards on Connor Boyle.
Oh, Connor, yeah, okay.
He did storyboards on Strontium Dog, and yeah, he did a fantastic job. Very cinematic sort of,
Yeah.
you know, sort of work on
Yeah,
that.
we basically copied them frame for frame, didn't we?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the time, you know, I mean, because me and you both kind of like did storyboards where it's more kind of like, this is just the shot we need to tick, you know, just to tick it off rather than adhering to it sort of like strictly. So it was just a kind of like a box tick, you know, sort of thing. But
And Barry had to do quite a lot of storyboards without even knowing what the location was. So.
yeah,
Fantastic work. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the 2 films. Thank you for giving up your afternoon this Saturday here in London to come and do this. And we're going to perhaps go off and have something to eat now. It's just been great fun. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
well, thank you.
Until next time, I've been Eamon,
I'm with Steve.
Conrad.
Stephen.
and we have been
Mega City Film Club.